task. It requires efforts at all levels, and that is why I believe it is a really an interdisciplinary area. And I am happy that we have people from all different branches of studies, and we are having a perfectly multidisciplinary course. So that is the requirement to achieve this sustainable development.
हाँ जी हाँ जी
But the one problem which I feel is with the higher education institutes and universities is that we
हाँ जी हाँ जी
usually we
दोनों बात कर रहे
tend
हैं
to work within our boundaries. That is very well expressed by someone that the world has problems, but we have the departments. So this sustainable development and green
ठीक है
energy and these topics are
ठीक है
this can be achieved only if we break these boundaries and try to make it truly interdisciplinary work.
हाँ ठीक
Now, I'll focus
हाँ
on the
जी
CO2
करी करने
emissions,
सर सारे यूज तो
carbon dioxide.
ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਾਰੇ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਇਹਦਾ ਕਲੱਬ ਹੋਏਗਾ ਤਾਂ ਕਮਿਊਨੀਕੇਸ਼ਨ ਲੈਬ ਨਾਲ
So,
ਅੱਜ ਤੱਕ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇਸ ਚੀਜ਼ ਨੂੰ ਫਾਲੋ
carbon
ਕਰਦੇ
dioxide
ਇਹ ਦੋਨੋਂ
is
ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ
present in
ਕੰਬਾਈਨ
the
ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੋ ਉੱਧਰ
environment
ਕਮਿਊਨੀਕੇਸ਼ਨ
naturally.
ਮਿਲ ਰਿਹਾ ਉੱਧਰ ਕੰਪਿਊਟਰ ਵੀ ਤੇ ਸਾਡਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ
There is
ਕਮਿਊਨੀਕੇਸ਼ਨ
no
ਆਨਲਾਈਨ ਸਲੈਬ ਹੈ ਸਾਰੀ ਫੁੱਲ ਹੋ ਗਈ ਹੈ ਸਵੇਰੇ
there
ਸ਼ਾਮੀ
is
ਸ਼ਾਮੀ 100 ਮੰਗਲ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਉਹ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈ ਅਨਿਲ ਵਾਲੀ ਫਾਈਲ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਅਨਿਲ ਵਾਲੀ ਲੈਬ ਹੈ ਕੰਪਿਊਟਰ ਵਾਲੀ ਲੈਬ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਬੈਂਟਲੇ ਲੈਬ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਆ ਉਹ ਸ਼ਨੀਵਾਰ ਆਕੂਪਾਈਡ ਹੈ ਬਾਕੀ ਸਾਰੇ ਦਿਨ ਖੁੱਲੀ ਹੈ ਹਾਂ ਹਾਂ ਸਿਵਲ ਦਾ ਉਹ ਅਭੀ ਪਿੰਡ lab load of CSC मतलब
Someone's mic is open. Kindly mute it. Kindly mute it, please.
I request that to you can expel also if people are not following your instructions. You can remove the participant from the session. Just remove the participant. So carbon dioxide is naturally present in the atmosphere. That is true. But the problem is that if the balance is disturbed, if its content is concentration is increased beyond a certain level, then it is not manageable. So global warming is basically the result of increase in the CO2 content beyond the balanced value. And as I have said, it is leading to increase in average temperature of the earth. And one study says that if we go on like this, then by 2070, about 19% of the portion of the world which is now being used for living will not remain suitable for living. Another interesting study by National Academy of Sciences says that the temperature rise in the last 50 years has been greater than the 6,000 years combined. So it is resulting into many effects, which I have said that clubbed in the term climate change. Another article, 2017 Science Advances says that if we go on like this, what we have been doing for last 100 or 150 years, then by 2100 at many places, a healthy person can die just coming out in the sunlight. And the the thing is that the same study says many of these places will be in India and China only. So this is the kind of effect this CO2 emission, increased value of CO2 emission is having. Now the question arises, in all this talk of sustainable development, CO2 emission, climate change, global warming, where does this electricity fit in? And why we are talking about uh, the sources of electricity in a topic related to sustainability or climate change and global warming? So the reason is that there is a direct connection between electricity and CO2. Normally, the electricity generation is based on burning of coals, that is fossil fuel. If you burn the fuel, you generate electricity. Now, what happens? when we burn coal to generate 1 unit of electricity, 1 unit of electricity means 1000 watt used for 1 hour. Then it leads to 850 gram, approximately world average 850 gram of CO. So 1 unit of electricity generated using coal or other fossil fuels, about 850 gram of CO, which gives us the direct connection between if the use of electricity is increasing, of course you will supply that increased requirement by generating more electricity. If that generation is through fossil fuels like coal, then you are increasing the carbon content. That is why our commitment as country at the UN level, that is the 2015 SDGs, we have committed to install about 40% out of our total capacity of electricity generation by 2030. We want to make 40% of that based on those sources of electricity which do not generate, which do not lead to release of carbon dioxide in the environment. That is the basic idea. So accordingly, this forms an important part of our overall commitment, which we have committed to reduce CO2 emission by 35% by the year 2005 as compared to the year 2005. 2005 to 2030, we are targeting a decline in CO2 emissions by 35%. And the installation of generation of electricity by non-fossil fuel or green sources of electricity forms an important part of that commitment. Now, the thing is that I have said that electricity generation leads to CO2 emission. But electricity is not something which you can ignore nowadays. Rather, electricity, I would say, is the most important vehicle for the modern society. The whole modern society structure is based on the electricity. Although it started with the basic needs only, lighting, and then came the cooling, then heating and cooling, and the whole this whole internet communication revolution is driven by electricity only. And you know the how crucial this, if you examine lighting, cooling, internet communication, all these are crucial things for the modern society, and all these are based on availability of electricity. In fact, we are moving to a situation when energy will become synonymous to electricity. There are studies which are saying that in the coming years, almost 75% of energy usage will be based on electricity only. So, electricity is a major source of carbon dioxide emission, electricity generation. But electricity is required, it is essential, it is mandatory for our society. The third thing which is complicating is the increasing requirement of electricity. Now I'll focus on the Indian scenario. A very reputed and credible study published by New Energy Outlook says that the in our country we will require more electricity than Europe by the year 2038 and by USA by 2045. The demand, what we have the demand right now, it will be 4 times by the year 2050. The infrastructure which we have for electricity generation and distribution, it will be expand by 6 times by 2039 and almost 8 times by the year 2050. Now, this is the kind of expansion we are observing in the Indian electricity scenario. Now, why it is happening? You know that first of all, we are a developing country, so many of our places did not have access to electricity, and now we are providing access there. So that is one factor. Second factor is the urbanization. As you know, people for better opportunities, people tend to move from smaller cities to bigger cities. So that is the other factor. Third is the lifestyle. You see, again, if you just recall your households only, all the gadgets which are related to your comfort or your improved lifestyle, all are based on electricity, and their number is increasing with each passing day. So, and of course, we cannot restrict the usage of these appliances. These are necessary for modern society. So, because of these factors, the Indian power grid is facing huge expansion. So, if I summarize, we have to conserve the climate, for which one of the most important issue is we have to limit the CO2 emission. Fine. CO2 emission, one of the most important contributors to CO2 emissions is the electricity generation. And electricity generation we cannot curtail, rather we need to meet the increased requirement of electricity. So these are the factors which we need to consider, uh, which are important. We need to work on these things. We need to keep in mind to address these issues. Now, addressing these issues basically involves the role of green energy. So now I am defining what we call as the green energy source. A green source of electricity is that source which do not contribute to CO2 emission when electricity is generated using that source. And renewable word means something which can be renewed, which will not exhaust. For example, coal is a fossil fuel, and if you accelerate its utilization, it will exhaust. Sunlight is a source of renewable and green source of energy, because you know the reasons. Wind, again, a source of renewable and green source of energy. Water also comes under that, but there are certain issues. And some biomass also comes under that, the source which is renewable as well as green. So with this background, the national mission, what is the national mission on renewable energy? The national mission has, we have to install 175 gigawatt of such energy plants, that is the carbon free electricity plants, by the year 2022. Now I'm just clarifying this gigawatt. So 1000 watt is a kilowatt, 1000 kilowatt is a megawatt, and 1000 megawatt is a gigawatt. Out of this 175, the major chunk is allocated to solar power. That is 100 gigawatt has to come from solar, because the reason is that our climate, the national climate, is more suited for the solar power. So this is the national mission on renewable energy, and this is the background why this mission has been established, or why we have set this mission. Now I have discussed the first part of my talk, and if anybody has any query related to this part, I am open for that. You can ask, you can discuss, you can ask a question, or you can, if you have anything to share, you can say. I am giving a pause of two minutes now. If you have any query till for on the discussion which I have had so far, please convey your query. Otherwise, I'll move to the second part of my talk. अजीत वर्दी जी बताएं, please convey your question. I have received one question that is it feasible to shift completely to green power from brown power? So brown power basically is referring to the conventional sources of electricity. So you see, this is an evolving field. Initially, the feeling with the electrical engineers and managers of grid was that about 50% we can go for these sources of electricity, and rest 50% will be based on the conventional sources of electricity. But as the percentage of these sources is increasing, so we have realized that we can go to a very higher level also. So right now the thinking is that we can go up to 80 to 90%, and only the remaining 10-15% will be required to be met by the conventional sources of electricity. So that is the idea right now. Some people are asking related, some queries are related to policy. So that I'll discuss later on in the last part of my presentation. One thing I have observed that obviously we most of the participants are faculty members, and have taken this from our students that we are very worried about attendance. So lot of questions related to attendance. So I want to clarify that attendance you need not do anything separately. The system will automatically register your attendance because you have joined the session. So no form is required to be filled. First thing. Second thing, you need not send your details in the messages to mark your attendance. Third thing is some people are asking related to feedback. So feedback again is not based on sessions. It will be a cumulative feedback after the program, and that will be on the website of AICT. So please, I have clarified these 2-3 issues. I hope your queries are answered. So now I'm continuing with my presentation. So I have said that with the background on the national mission on CO2 prevention, reduction in CO2 emission, we have set a target of 175 gigawatt of green energy sources installation by 2022. Out of that, 100 gigawatt will come from solar power. Now, this green energy sources or renewable energy sources like solar and wind are increasing globally. And this is a development of mostly the last decade, that is the decade which is ending this year, and some part related to the decade earlier. So 20 years development it is there, because around 2000 only 5 to 6% of global installed capacity was based on renewable energy, and now whatever new installations are there, almost 50% are of these green energy sources. And in fact, we expect that by 2050, almost two-thirds of global electrical energy shall be met by these sources of electricity. Now, of course, the question arises, is CO2 emission because of electricity generation? People knew about it from long time back, and the solar cell itself was invented in 1950s. The solar module, that is the commercial utilization of that, was again invented in 1970s, way back in 1970s. So why we are seeing this adoption in last 10 years or 20 years only? So the reason is that, particularly in case of solar PV, there is a development, a particular kind of development which led to their widespread and rapid adoption. That is the grid connected solar PV rooftop system. So I'll try to give you a basic idea of that, and I am aware that we have people from diverse backgrounds. So I'll try to keep it simple and with minimum technical terms, but sufficient for you to understand its operation. So basically, electricity can be utilized in one of the two ways. Either you utilize it in the form of DC, for example, your most of your electronic appliances, or you utilize it in the form of AC. Mostly the utilization is in the form of AC. Now, solar cell works in the way that when you expose it to sunlight, it converts that sunlight into electricity. That electricity is in DC form. So one way of using that is you store that into battery. Then battery, because it has DC, and when you want to utilize it in the form of AC, you convert that by using an inverter. So inverter is a device which converts DC into AC. So that is the conventional or simplest way. But the problem with that system is the battery is a costly equipment as compared to other two equipment, that is solar cells, solar module, and inverter. Battery has a lower life. Battery requires space and regular maintenance. So in that scenario, this the other option came, which is called as grid connected solar PV rooftop system. In this system, what happens? There is a solar module, that is solar panel, and there is an inverter, but there is no battery. So basically, what we have done, we have utilized the benefits of solar PV, and we have eliminated the weaker link, that was the battery. So when we eliminate the battery, what we do? We use the grid as the battery. What does it mean? So first, one thing I would like to clarify: grid means the supply for our discussion. Grid is the supply from power corporation which you are getting at your home or your office. So what we do, we connect this system with that grid. So how it works? If any, if your generation, the plant which you have installed at your house, is less than your requirement, you withdraw from the grid. And if your generation is excess, then you send it back to the grid. That is how it works. And I would say this has been the star, this configuration, grid connected solar PV rooftop. Because of this system, the rapid deployment of solar power system has been because of this system. Now I'll explain it briefly. See, suppose your house, you install the rooftop solar panels on your rooftop. The output of sorry, the output of these panels is through inverter is connected to the distribution board of your house. So that is, you have solar PV system, that is the panels, the inverter, the meter, and grid means this distribution board is already having supply from the nearby pole to your house. So that is how it is connected to the grid. Now how it works? The solar power panels are converting sunlight into electricity. Your house is also connected with the grid. Now, whatever requirement of your house is being met through this solar panel, that is met by this source, and only the balance requirement is withdrawn from the grid. For example, your load is 3 kilowatt, your plant is 2 kilowatt, then only the balance requirement of 1 kilowatt is withdrawn from the grid. I will explain it in a more simpler way. Suppose someday during the sunlight hours, you require, say, 5 units of electricity. Your house requires 5 units of electricity, and 2 units are supplied by the solar power plant which is you have installed. So 2 supplied from your solar plant, and 3 will be withdrawn from the grid. Or from this figure also you can understand it like this. Suppose we are talking for 1 hour. In 1 hour you require 3 kilowatt, that is, you require 3 units. This is generating 2 units. Then you will withdraw only 1 unit from the plant. Now what is your benefit? The financial benefit is that you have saved bill for 2 units from this. Instead of withdrawing from the grid, you have generated, your plant has generated it. What is your environmental contribution? The environmental contribution is 2 into 850 gram into number of hours. That is the CO2 equivalent CO2 saving which you have made in grams. So that is how this plant works and helps you financially as well as environmentally. Now comes the other scenario. The second scenario, which is more interesting, that is your requirement is less and your generation of your solar plant is more. So what happens? Whatever is required by your house, that will be met. The excess amount of electricity which has been generated by your plant will be exported to the grid. You see, the 2 kilowatt, that is the excess amount which you have generated, is being exported to the grid. Now, what is your benefit? You have saved your electricity bill of 3 units per hour. Plus, additional saving is this, because your meter will record this export as the negative, that is credit to your account. And what is your environmental saving? Of course, your environmental saving is 5 into 850 into number of hours.
Sir, but how will this be possible, sir, in the second case?
Hmm?
Sir, in the second case, when
I'm
generation...
addressing your question. So the now 2-3 question will be coming to your mind, of course. First is how it will be managed. That is, do we need to do something? Do we need to segregate the appliances? Do we need to install some additional wiring? So I try to address these queries. First thing is, you need not do anything. This whole, whether we are talking of the first case or we are talking of the second case, this functioning is automatic. This role is played by the inverter installed in your plant. So you need not do anything. First thing. Second thing is, you need not segregate your appliances. So it will not happen that your fan and some fans and some lights are running on this solar generation and remaining is running on your grid. No. What is happening basically? You have, like, suppose you have 2 taps of water. You want to fill a bucket. You keep that bucket below and open these 2 taps, and both are contributing. Only difference is that in this case the solar tap is having more pressure. That is, it is the priority source. First, it will be utilized fully. Only the balance will be withdrawn from the grid. This is one thing. Second thing is, when export possibility is there, that is, your generation is more than your load, then you need not require any separate wiring. The same system of wires or cables which is bringing electricity to your home from the pole will take it back from your home to the pole. So you need not install any wiring for that. These are the 2 important things which you need to understand. Clear?
Sir, I'm still having a doubt.
Hmm?
Sir, the fact is that if suppose the power generated from the solar panel is 5 kilowatt, as it is mentioned in the slide, the requirement for the house is 3 kilowatt. And we are
Yes.
saying that the remaining 2 kilowatt will be fed back to the grid. Now, sir, the fact is that we can consider the grid to be having infinite capacity. So, there is such condition that the potential at which we are feeding the supply from the panel to the grid is higher, or any such necessary conditions, because otherwise...
This, of course, you see the inverter for grid connected plants are different inverters. These are called on-grid inverter. And the first, what is your background? Can you please give me your introduction?
I am a faculty of electrical engineering.
Which institute?
Academy of Technology.
What is your name?
Devashishu.
So the thing is that, of course, you know, as an electrical engineer, when you can merge 2 sources only when you have synchronized these sources. So this inverter will ensures that the synchronization requirements are fulfilled, and of course then only it connects your system with the grid. So that is taken care. No problem in that. It's perfectly functioning system, because inverter matches the voltage and frequency with of these two systems, and it works. So
Hello.
we can again discuss in the end, towards the end. If you still you have
Okay,
some query,
thank
we
you.
can discuss it towards the end.
Thank you.
So basically, what I am trying to emphasize is that you need not install any new setup of wires and cables and all that. Your house will have three things only. One is your solar panels. Second is your inverter, that is called as grid connected inverter. And third is of course, you have the grid connection to your house. Only difference is that I am saying that your meter will record it as a credit. So of course that means the meter can record it in both directions only when it can rotate or it can register in both directions. So what is to be done? Your conventional meter in your house or office will be replaced by a net meter, which is a bi-directional meter. So what does a bi-directional meter does? It will record the import, that is the import from the grid what you have taken. It will record the export, and your bill will be based on net, that is import minus export. So that is the change which your house distribution system will have. Your meter will be replaced by a bi-directional. So that is the important thing. Now, because of this system, that is the on-grid or net metering based or grid connected system, you see, the most important benefit of this system is that you have replaced the weaker element from the system, that is the battery. So it has become highly viable economical. And when something becomes economically viable, of course its acceptance increases. So it is a fact that environment question cannot be addressed only by talking related to environment. We need to make it a balance between environment and economy. So because of this system, you see, the Indian power grid is adopting these sources at a high pace. Now I have mentioned some examples here. So airports, Cochin Airport is in fact the leading airport in the world, which started the solarization of the airport, and right now they have 40 megawatt solar power working for that airport. And these plants have resulted into reduction in 3 lakh metric tons of carbon dioxide emissions of that airport. And now 37 megawatt additionally is coming at different airports. Then Indian Railways also, which is a large consumer of electricity, rather largest, it is also planning to become green, that is fully on green energy sources by 2030. They are already undergoing installation of 1 gigawatt in 2020, and they intend to increase that to 5 gigawatt by 2025. The Delhi Metro Rail has already installed 32.4 megawatt solar power and plans to add 50 megawatt by 2022. In fact, they have already made it mandatory that any new installation of DMRC which will come will have rooftop solar plants in that. The Noida Metro Rail has also installed 10 megawatt of solar power. So that is how different sectors are adopting this, and of course the universities and academic institutions should take a lead in this. So in this regard, at AMU also we are having very good setup of this green source of powers. We already have 6.5 megawatt of solar power in the campus, which is largest in any academic institute in India. It includes a 3.3 megawatt ground mounted, that is the centralized solar plant also. So these plants are generating around 27,000 units per day. Now, I'm sure you can understand that if I am generating 27,000 units by a grid connected solar plant, then effectively I am reducing withdrawal of 27,000 plants from units from the grid. And if you multiply that 27,000 by 850 grams, so 20,000 kilograms CO2 saving we are representing daily. That is, which is called as reduction in carbon footprint of the campus by 20,000 kg per day. In fact, in the last financial year, we have generated around 78 lakh units of electricity from these solar plants, which represent about 25% of our total consumption, that is 24 hours for the whole year. So that is how this solar park is helping campuses and installations in reducing their carbon footprints. This I have included. It is one of the pictures of our solar farm. When you have a large solar plant installed at one place, that is also known as solar farm. So it's a 3.3 megawatt solar farm, and it is a unique installation. No other academic institute in the country has such type of renewable energy installation. It has 10,500 solar panels in this field. Each panel has 315 watt rating. So this is, then we have distributed plants also on rooftops. So this is showing one of the hostels having the rooftop solar plant. Now, what I am saying is not limited to Indian context. The same trend is being observed all over the world. This is the snapshot which I have included. Germany, 5th July 2020. On 5th July 2020, they have generated 80%, almost 80% of their total requirement using these green sources of energy. Now, again, repeating what I have said earlier also, the most important factor in the adoption of this solar energy is the rapid decline in cost. But I would say that it is a cycle. When something is accepted, then its production also increases. Then, because of mass production, the cost decreases. Because of decreased cost, it is further accepted, and then further leads to more production and decreased cost. So that cycle has been observed for solar panels also, and you see what kind of sharp decline has been observed from 2010 to 2020-21. And these are some interesting numbers. If you compare worldwide, average price worldwide, the price of solar panel modules in 2010 was about 12 times the present price of solar modules. Then in 77, if you compare it with the price of 1977, it was almost 459 times the present price. So of course, that is the reason you see the widespread adoption of this technology. Plus, as I have said, adoption also leads to reduction in cost. It is a cycle. At this point, I would mention two important things, because I know otherwise participants will ask this as a question. What is the financial implication of this? So financial implication, you can understand that right now a 1 kilowatt solar plant, the cost is around 40,000 for 1 kilowatt. And if you want to calculate your requirements or financial calculations, so 1 kilowatt plant usually generates somewhere around 4 to 5 units per day. So suppose you install a 3 kilowatt plant in your house or in your office. So you can expect it to generate around 12 to 15 units of electricity per day. So accordingly, you can calculate your investment or your return. But in general, it can be said that the return period for a household solar plant, residential customer, is about 6 years. And for a large consumer like university or some industry, it is 4 years or so. Two things I would like to add here. Although tomorrow we have a lecture on solar PV rooftop, further details the resource person will discuss. But I'll mention two things. One limitation of this grid connected plant is that it works only in the presence of the grid supply. That is, it is not a backup source. You cannot expect it to supply your requirement when the grid is not available. So, and that there is a reason behind that, because suppose you have installed grid connected plant at your top, and your area engineer takes a shutdown to and depute his staff to carry out some maintenance work on the transmission lines, and your plant is exporting electricity, so that becomes a life threatening issue. So that is why in inverter there is a mandatory international provision that inverter will cut off the plant as soon as the grid supply is off. So this is, so what I want to say is, if somebody is living at a place where the daytime power cut, I'm talking only during the sun hours. If the daytime power cut is say of 5 hours or 6 hours, then this is not the technology for you to go for. Then you need to look for the off grid, that is the battery system plant. But if your daytime power cut is say within 2 hours, then there is no issue. Only your return period, instead of 6 years, it may become 7 or 8 years. So that will increase. So that is the thing. And second thing is that these plants are durable plants. The main warranty period for us for solar panels is 25 years warranty period, and inverter has minimum 5 years warranty. Maintenance wise, you need to clean these panels at least twice a month. Simply like you clean the windshield of your cars. So that is, I have mentioned the limitation, the maintenance, and the cost, just for those participants who may be interested in further examining it. Now, continuing with what we are discussing, this increasing share of renewables is not, as I have said, not limited to Indian context only. This is the European context, and you see this year the renewables have crossed, exceeded, their contribution is exceeding the contribution of the fossil fuels in generation of electricity. This status I have mentioned is of renewable energy in the grid, in Indian grid as of March 2020. So wind almost 38 gigawatt, solar almost 35. So 35, you compare it with the target. The target is 100 gigawatt by 2022. And small hydro around 5 you can say, and biomass and waste to energy. So total is 87 gigawatt we have right now. But the most rapid contribution is coming from solar and of course wind, because with solar there is a big benefit in case of Indian context, is that you can install it almost anywhere, because you have climate is highly suitable and you can install on your rooftop. You need not look for a new land to install for this type of plant. Wind, of course, has this limitation. It cannot be installed everywhere. It can be installed only on selected locations. Similarly, hydro also has this issue, that you cannot have this plant anywhere. In my last talk, somebody said that hydro is economical as compared to solar. So I said, but you cannot install a hydro plant in your house, on the rooftop your house. So that is why it is I'm sure that the solar and wind will form the major dominant chunk of green energy sources in the grid everywhere throughout the world, and solar will be the leading one ultimately, because of the um, easiness. It can be installed anywhere, almost anywhere. I have mentioned that 2022, by 2022, we want to have this 100 gigawatt of solar. And of course, you can understand the number which we have right now, 35 gigawatt, there is a huge gap which we need to fill. But when we see the progress of last 2-3 years, we are hopeful, because in last 2-3 years, most of this addition has come in last, you can say, 5 years. But this corona has come up as an unexpected challenge, and in fact, this is the first year when you will see the percentage wise addition yearly. So it will come as the first low year after 1980s. The reason is that first reason is that solar projects are commissioned in this way, that you have large number of people working for a short interval of time, and of course, because of corona and social distancing, physical distancing, you can initially 2-3 months the projects were stopped. Although the government took some initiatives, and from April end or so, the projects were permitted, but still it is having an impact. The second impact has come from this China issue. The import, first because of corona, the import was affected, and then the border issues are also affecting this. And we were heavily dependent in case of solar energy on China. Almost 80% was import from China, so that is also affecting. But this crisis has also given an opportunity to the Indian sector to come up and strengthen our domestic manufacturing capacities. But still, it is expected that total 4 gigawatt of solar power capacity will be impacted because of this year, because of corona and the other issues. Now, I would like to highlight one more thing quickly. I have said that we need to eliminate the carbon dioxide coming into the environment because of electricity generation. Because of, or rather, I say because of electricity requirement. So one option we have discussed, that we shift the electricity generation from the conventional sources to green sources like solar and wind. That is one option. This is called energy shifting. But there is another equally important aspect which we call it as energy conservation. So what is energy conservation or energy efficiency? You can call that. Energy conservation or energy efficiency means we look for those means by which we can perform our tasks by utilizing lesser amount of electricity. Now, a very good and simple example is your lighting LED bulbs. So initially we had these filament bulbs of 100 watt or so. Then these bulbs were replaced by CFL of say 22 watt or so. Now you have come to the LED bulbs, which can be used of 9 watt or so. So this is representing the energy conservation or energy efficiency. That is, the same work which you are doing in 100 watt is now being done in 8 or 9 watt. So this is also to be taken seriously, and this has to be worked upon, because this presents a very good opportunity. We need to, and plus, of course, this is energy efficiency. The second is wastage of energy you need to minimize. So for that, we need to create awareness. So minimizing the wastage and looking for efficient solutions, plus the green sources of electricity, then only we will be able to achieve this target of. And energy efficiency is a very, very important aspect identified at all levels. Now, I'll talk on something on the role of universities and colleges in this, because most of us, and rather almost all of us, are related to some college or university. So first thing I believe is that I had discussed in the initial part of the talk also, that we need to talk about. We need to keep these concerns in mind when we are devising our future plans. So sustainable development has to be an integral part of our future plans. But an important but is that this should not remain confined to the lectures and the syllabi of courses only. Many a times what we have observed is we talk something in the class, but often that is not reflected in the implementation. So when we realize that sustainable development is important, then it should be reflected in our campus planning, implementation, adoption also. So, for example, one concept is that we should adopt the green and renewable sources on our existing as well as new buildings. Like I have said, the institutions are making it mandatory that in new buildings are coming, we will have integrated, say, solar power plants on the buildings, plus the energy efficient appliances, what I have discussed. So, for example, in our campus, we have made it a policy that no new AC will be installed in the campus, which is not at least 5 star, or it should be inverter type, because these are the two energy efficient options available. So this is one way we have to make it policy matter. We have made it a policy that we will integrate the proposal of rooftop solar power plant in the proposal of building itself. So we need to do that. Other options are also very important, and different campuses have come up with different innovative ways. For example, I have seen some university has started this green teaching certification program. That is, as a teacher, to the maximum extent possible, how you are including or incorporating this sustainable criteria, this climate crisis, and solutions in your syllabi. Of course, it depends on which course you are teaching. So depending on that, to the maximum extent, how you can help in that. We can form the student groups also, which work in these areas: Green Energy Council, Green Energy Leadership Center. In our campus, like we have formed these energy monitors for every office, every department has an energy monitor. So his role is just to sanitize people regarding this. Sanitization. We are speaking so much nowadays that, so we need to educate people related to wastage of energy, the effect of wastage of energy is having. So we have energy monitors we have made energy monitors in every department and every office. Most important thing which I believe, which the role of an academic institution is, we need to create awareness. We need to talk about it, not only in our campuses, but the inter-campus interaction also. We need to ensure the participation of stakeholders and discussion, especially this part of conservation and minimizing wastage. It cannot succeed without active participation of stakeholders. So we need to ensure participation of stakeholders. We need to start discussion on this. And this energy audit is also an important thing. You see, like we have financial audit. What is the objective of financial audit? To identify any financial leakages or wastages. Similarly, energy audit is to identify any leakages or wastages and then to eliminate those, to ensure that these leakages are not there. So energy audit, there are basic energy audit your organization yourself can carry out, utilizing the resources available on internet. You can have a certified energy audit also. There are certified energy auditors which you can approach, and they will carry out the energy audit for your college or your campus. So important thing is, we need to make this integral part of our future plans. We need to talk about it. We need to include in the syllabi. But with all that, we need to show the implementation also, because academic institutions are the leaders of change. They can bring out the change required. Now, towards the end, I'm just I'm quickly sharing some technological challenges for grid energy. Of course, I am not going into the details because that will become highly electrical centric concept, but only those things which I'm sure all of you can understand. So, as these sources, their percentage is increasing in the grid. So one issue which we need to consider is that these are variable sources. You know that sun does not shine 24 hours, wind does not blow always. So these are the variable sources. Sometimes they are available, sometimes they are not available. So that is a challenge for grid operators. Then I have discussed this concept of power coming to your house from the grid and your solar plant exporting power back to the grid. So that means there is a bi-directional flow which was not there in the conventional side. So you see, this is a new thing. Of course, it has brought up new challenges and new opportunities also. And you see, the power grid is moving towards small distributed plants, but the impact in one area can affect other areas also. So we need to have information from a large geographical area. But I would say that this era, this time is a challenging but rewarding time for those people who are working in these areas. Not only electrical engineers, but from other related areas also. And one thing I would like to emphasize that I have given you many examples also. I have given you the example of campus itself. So it is, I have not talked about anything which will come up in future. I have talked about something which is already there, which is already functional, the way I have discussed. And of course, we need to create awareness among general people, not related to electrical only. And that is the purpose of this FDP itself. And among the engineers and all, we need to train these people. So I think I have covered what I wanted to discuss, and I have mentioned that these sources are essential, and of course these have become the dominant part of the power grid, and accordingly the policymakers at national level also, but at the college campus level also, we need to take this into account when we are devising our policies as well as when we are devising our syllabi and training material. And I have mentioned that this we can succeed in this mission only by wider participation of stakeholders. We need to create awareness. We need to train people. We need to act together. Coordination, as I have said, this is a multidisciplinary area. And in fact, not only academics or students, general people, we need to involve general public into this. And of course, as I have mentioned, electricity is the essential requirement of this present society, and we need to take this out from the confines of electrical engineering department. All it belongs to all now. So of course, it's efficient utilization of electricity and minimizing the waste effect on environment is responsibility of all of us, not only the electrical engineers. That is why we need to work on this, and in this direction, I believe this effort of AICT, this program is commendable. We are able to talk to almost we have 200 participants from more than 160 different institutes out of 24 different states in the country. So a wider participation is there, and I'm sure that this program will be able to generate the discussion which I have talked about. Now I'm open to questions. I'll request any questions from the audience. If you have any questions, you can unmute your mic and ask, and you can also send in writing if you want to send it in writing.
So how we can make solar inverter working when there is no inputs?
Can you repeat your question? I am not able to hear it.
So I have written my question in the chat box also.
No, your question is related to efficiency of solar system in tropical wet climate regions. As I said, I do not have the details related to specific climatic regions, but I can say simply in this way that suppose my city has 300 sunny days. Let me say, sunny days means when the sun shines well, and your city has 200 sunny days. Let me say it like that. So what will happen? The ROI for you will be, of course, more as compared to ROI for me. So that is this. I can explain it in this way. So suppose ROI for me is 6 years, then ROI for you may be 8 or 9 years, like that. Because efficiency, you see, because in this case input is free, because there is no cost on sunlight. So efficiency is basically impacting your ROI. That is the idea. Somebody has said that Dr. Ajit Vardi, how we can make solar inverter working when there is no input, as inverter works on solar synchronization. I am not getting your question. If you are saying that, as I have said, that when the supply is not there, it is turned off. Kindly reframe your question so I may be able to understand and reply. Somebody is asking for PPT. Of course, you see, I will try to share PDF of all the presentations. And even if we are not sharing PDF, we'll upload all the recorded lectures on YouTube. So you can always go back to the lecture. But this is my PDF. Of course, I'll share the PDF. No problem with that. So for the time being, you please concentrate on your questions related to the talk. General questions, please avoid.
Sir, may I ask a question, sir?
Yeah, sure, please.
This is Sriram Sharma from Matrush Engineering College, sir, Hyderabad. Sir, actually, we are talking about the solar system and grid-connected solar system, all those. But unless until government has a special schemes which attracts people to go for these grid-connected systems or load-connected system, it won't be revolutionized. Is there any such type of policies coming up in future, sir, to make the people aware of this? Because some cities, there is a policy that to go for any permission, they have to install solar heaters or something, etc. Then only they will get permission for buildings and all those. Like that, there are many schemes from the government side, political side. There are many schemes are going on. But the thing is, there should be some compulsion must be there so that people will be moving towards this rather than more discussions.
Let me try to address this. What I believe is that it is not because of lack of government support. Rather, it is because of lack of training and implementation on the ground level by the concerned offices. Because you see, financial support is required when economic viability is not there. So economic viability is now there, and initially the government was giving this net metering system to everyone, even to industry, commercial industries and all that. But because of quick adoption, now they have restricted it to residential and agriculture only. Plus, some subsidy exists in states. For example, in UP, there is 10,000 per kilowatt subsidy that exists. But what I have found is that people, of course, general people general public is not aware of all these things. So this awareness creation has been missing. People are not aware how these systems work and how they can benefit them financially also, not only environmentally but financially also. And this official formalities sometimes discourage people when they go for installation of this system and they do not find that kind of support and explanation. That is an, I believe. I don't think financial is much of an issue right now. So that is why I'm repeatedly saying, and at all the platforms, that we need train people and take people on board, that those who are interfacing with the general public. Any other question? Somebody has asked regarding subsidy. I have mentioned that central government is you can refer to MNRE, and state-wise it is different. As I have said, for UP there is a subsidy of 10,000 per kilowatt that is available in UP state. Any other question? Yeah, sure.
Actually, I'm Arjit Mukherjee. So just I want to know that for any household installation, is it possible to engage MPPT for maximum taking
You see,
the maximum
MPPT is MPPT is an integral part of this setup inverter. So that is already there in the inverter.
Okay.
Good afternoon,
Any
sir.
other question, please?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sure.
This is Srijita. Sir, my question is very basic. That can we imagine electrical engineering without chemistry? As I am from chemistry background, my question is very basic.
So who is imagining electrical engineering without chemistry?
So that is good connection between. No, sir. Is there any chances that can we imagine? I am asking.
You see, any engineering college, when a student comes for electrical engineering, BTech electrical engineering, first he has to study chemistry in the first year itself. So
Sir,
nobody is imagining in this.
It is different, but in research background, I am asking: is there any possibility if any research is going to be happen without chemistry?
No. This, as I have repeatedly said in my presentation also, as especially this field, this whole sustainable development and the green energy, the development of these resources, it requires a coordinated effort on all branches of studies and science and so we are not imagining electrical engineering without chemistry. Now I have to make few important announcements. So, and I'll answer your questions. I'll interact with you all one more time. One more session I have. You can ask the remaining question that time. I have few important announcements. So kindly see there are 3 requirements.